All right, modeling the ear. The ear is going to be relatively easy to model, just like everything else. So we're going to hide the face so that we can see the ear here a bit better. And we're going to model the ear in a pretty similar way to modeling the face. We're going to start with just a single polygon. Now, the fairy's ear is a bit different from your standard human ear. So we're going to start with a polygon right here on the front edge. And 1 by 1 length and width segments is good. I don't have my front end correct side ref here. So we're going to move that over, and then we're going to actually grab a new plane in our background, and we're going to put the face on this. So I have included in the folder there a higher resolution version of the front and side. So we're going to grab a new standard material in here and a new bitmap. Then we're going to go back to our scene folder, and we're going to grab the side ref. That's the blow up of the face. So then we can wire that into our diffuse color. And then we'll drop that onto this plane. Now, go to show in viewport. And once again, we're going to need to make sure that we put a UVW map modifier on there. Bitmap fit. And then pick the correct reference file. So the plane I drew in was relatively close to be the correct size. So we're going to go to Object Properties, and I'm going to adjust the visibility of it just a little bit so that we can scale the whole thing down to fit the background image. A bit better resolution version of the face. Now, we'll right click, go back to Object Properties, and bring the visibility back up to 1. Now, I get a little bit cleaner lines there, and then when I rotate this from the front view, holding down Shift, get to 90, we're going to make it as an instance, and then I'm going to put a different material on there. Now, the idea to make that an instance is that if I need to change one, I'm going to change them both. But it also allows me to keep the proportions of this image exactly the same. So that when we now drop this one on to this object and tell it to show on the viewport, it's using the exact same gizmo and it's the exact same size. So I know it's scaled correctly, although we do have to go to Object Properties and make it a bit transparent. So I can position it, and then we'll go back and increase the visibility. All right, now we can move that back. And now we've got a new set of reference objects here for modeling the ear. We're also going to select the 2 of those, go to Object Properties, make sure Show Frozen in Gray is unchecked, and then we'll freeze them. That's going to allow us to model in front of them without accidentally picking them constantly. Right click, convert to editable poly, and then we can go into vertex and start moving this around. All right, now with everything else, we want to try to maintain as low poly of an object here as possible so that once we're done, we can actually weld it back on to the head and not have too many triangles around the outside edge there. We're going to shift drag this around and start to form the perimeter of that ear. So as you can see, at least at first here, the only thing I'm really concerning myself with is trying to get the profile here figured out. So after that's done, then we'll worry about trying to move things out to meet the side view. try to do this with as few polygons as possible. There's no absolute to any of this. You just really want to try to be efficient with how you set this up. Because we don't want, 400 vertices around the edge of the ear and then only 20 on the side of the head where we need to connect it to. The ear is one of those surfaces that has a ton of detail. It always seems like you need a ton of geometry in order to make it work, but it's usually not the case. You can actually get by most of the time with a lot less geometry for most surfaces than you really think. So we're going to bridge across to there with a couple of segments. Okay, that, we'll okay that, and then we're going to start grabbing and moving things out. Now, again, with this, we're going to want to turn on see-through so that we'll be able to start figuring out where everything belongs in relation to each other. So knowing here that this is basically where we're reattaching to the face, I have kind of a nice set of edges there to follow to help me figure out and visualize where that actually is. All right, now it's just a matter of trying to figure out, as far as the surfaces and the flow of the surface goes, what's going to be the best way to try to connect things together and form quads wherever possible. So from here, we'll be moving on to building the interior structure of that ear.